Hey, everybody, it's Rick and Rob with the Nomad Pastor Podcast.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
It's kind of a marathon day for us today.
It has been, but it's been a good day.
It has.
It's been a real good day. We've had some great conversations.
Absolutely. If you guys don't know, we try to do like 2 or 3 of these at a time.
Yeah.
And so, it gives us plenty of time to do some research and then knock them out on it.
But here's the thing: we don't follow up with enough research.
I'm telling you, we're going to talk about one right now that we haven't. We haven't even planned, right?
We was like, "What's the next one to do?" Okay.
So, look, what we want to talk about today is utilizing your past to grow the future kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think it's kind of perfect for us because, our pasts are different.
Mm-hmm.
Our walks are different.
Yep.
And the people that we minister to are different because of that past.
Yes.
Right. And so everybody has a past.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you think about your past and how you're using that to grow the future kingdom today, what does that look like?
For me, utilizing my past as kind of a deterrent.
Yeah.
And we've talked some about my testimony before,
Yep.
and you've heard it. You've heard the majority of it, and know that August the 1st of 2008 was the first day in I don't remember how many years that I was actually sober.
Right.
And being clean and sober these days, today, some 5,300 days later, is something that I can use as far as not just a deterrent, but to offer some hope, because of but God.
Yeah, because I think there are people who are, in active addiction
Mm-hmm.
that don't see a way out. And so
Right.
they can look at you and say, there is hope.
Mm-hmm.
There's hope. But hopefully, and I know you, right? So I know what they see, but hopefully what they see through their eyes is hope through Christ.
Yes.
Right? That you will never be alone in this.
That's what I want people to see.
Right? I think they should see that just based on your life.
Mm-hmm.
But because they see that there's hope and they're never alone, then that's a way to grow the future.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because people recognize that, right? That whole 12-step program is a higher power.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's God, even though people may not want to admit it.
I don't want to admit, and I have, I was in a recovery meeting one time, and we're talking about higher power. That was the topic of conversation.
Yeah.
And somebody goes, well, what if my higher power is not really like a spirit being?
Yeah.
And the facilitator of the meeting, and I'm not giving up any anonymity or confidentiality here. But the leader of the meeting goes, look, I don't care if you think your higher power is a toaster, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're wrong, because your toaster is not going to be able to give you any hope.
That's absolutely true.
Your toaster is not going to be able to give you any strength.
Yeah.
Your toaster is not going to be able to give you a clear vision of the day.
Absolutely. What's funny is there's a TV show. It's not on anymore, but it was on for like 8 or 10 years called Mom.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all about recovery and addicts.
Yeah, yeah.
And, right. And there's one point that the mom says, I don't care who your higher power is. Mine's Oprah.
What? Oh, right? My goodness. Mine's Oprah.
Mine's Oprah. But there has to be something there, right? It is not.
Yeah.
It's not a human.
No.
Right. There is a reason for it. And, the walk that you have had gives people hope in that.
Sure. And here's a cool thing about it. All of the people that prayed for me through that time.
Yeah.
All the people that prayed for me during that time had obviously had a direction from the Holy Spirit to do it.
Right.
But at the same time had enough faithfulness to continue in that, so that they pressed forward in their prayer lives to get to a point to where I would realize that my higher power is not the drink or the drug.
That's right.
That my higher power that can bring me that hope, bring me that encouragement, that can bring me that strength, has to rely back on God.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten that over all those years. So
it's easy to.
It is. So when you talk about utilizing your past to grow the future kingdom, grow the kingdom, right? It's not just about my testimony that I can, show some shock and awe with, and what I could do, my scars, my wound, those things. It's not about that. And it's not just about a deterrent, but it's about learning from those mistakes that I made back then to show others, hey, look, you don't have to make these same mistakes. Coming from somebody that is, tattooed and scarred and has those memories of what I did and the people that I burned and hurt in the wake of that destruction.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that same thing.
Yeah, you don't. And it's hard, right? So if I think about, how, my past, right? I wasn't an alcoholic, right? But I grew up in an alcoholic house.
Right.
Right. And it was not easy. Mm-hmm. So I can relate to people who, a lot of times you say, well, I've heard people say, if there was a God, why did I grow up that way? Mm. Right? Yeah. Why did God not fix my situation? I was a kid. Mm-hmm. That's not me saying that, but I've heard people say that. It's like, look, I don't have an answer to that, but let me tell you how you get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, let me show you. Let me help you out with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to relate to those people. Mm-hmm. Right? Look, I could have very easily been an alcoholic.
Sure.
But I just refused to be who my father was.
Mm-hmm. Praise God.
I was still an angry dude. Let's be honest.
Well,
Look, I wasn't a great person. I'm going to openly say that I was not a good person. I don't even want to say I wasn't a great person. I was not a good person. Mm-hmm. Right. But it has got me to where I am today and helped me recognize that I see those people that were like me, mm-hmm. and I see them and I say, I see you. Mm-hmm. Right? I know what you're going through. You want to talk? You let me know. Mm-hmm. I've been there.
Yeah.
Right. And I can relate just like you can relate.
Right.
Right. I love to go to recovery meetings, even though I wasn't an alcoholic, mm-hmm. but I've been where a lot of their family has been.
Sure.
Right. I can give an insight that maybe they haven't considered.
Yeah.
Right. And I know they have Al-Anon for that and a bunch of different stuff, but
yeah, but still, though people that have successfully come from that.
Yeah.
And people that have successfully, and I don't want to say overcome, but come through.
Yeah.
Okay. That can offer that kind of help.
Right.
We'll call it help.
Right.
Right. It is huge. And even though Al-Anon is there and my family members were, encouraged to do that, and kind of get some of that.
Yeah.
Some of that feedback from what Al-Anon can offer and things like that. But and there were a lot of tools that were used for those things. And then one of the I still like to watch that TV show Intervention.
Yeah.
And they don't just work with the addict in that,
right.
and they work with the family at the same time, right. And whether that's, codependency or enabling or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and looking back at what our past can bring to the future, is not just about, like I said, it's not just about the shock and awe. It's not just
That's
about
right.
the scars and tattoos and the wounds and things that I had from my addiction, but in the way that I manipulated.
Right.
Or in the way that people around me were codependent on what my situation was.
Right.
Or the way that people around me enabled me in that situation, whether it be in buddies, whether it be in families. They're like, okay, look, you're sick right now. Why don't you just go take care of that? Yeah. I look at that and using my past to help the future kingdom. And I look at people who I see are obviously in that pitfall.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it's easy for me to see somebody off the street,
that
uses or that, either way.
You can tell.
You can tell.
Yeah.
You really can. And, I've been in a conversation with somebody before and went, when was the last time you used? What do you mean? You're high right now.
Yeah.
You're loaded at this moment.
At this very, like we're having a conversation.
Right. I can see it.
Yeah.
Because I managed it for however many years. I know. You're not saying anything slick to an oil can here, buddy.
Yeah. Did you find, I think for me, when I first really started digging in, right, like really getting close to Christ and recognizing the stuff I needed to do, right, that I don't know, I believe I was doing it for the right reason, but was I? I don't know, right? Like, was I trying to overcome, like, I was this bad person, so if I do more, then I'll look that much better? Or was I trying to grow the kingdom? I know today it's all about growing the kingdom.
Right.
Right. But there's these transition periods of Christianity, right? Where, you're walking, you're running, you're diving in feet first, you're jumping off the cliff together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And do you feel like there was ever a time where you were trying to make up for your past?
Oh, yeah.
I know there was for me.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely was trying to make up for just being an angry, mean
jerk
SOB.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I overcompensated and went way overboard.
I think I did too. I know I did.
I know I did.
I know I did.
And because of that, it's caused some people to go, what?
Right. Right. And now they're like, well, hold on. You were like this, and then you were like really like this.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of peaceful and calm and gentle.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm kind of coming into my own.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a growth process.
For lack of a better term.
Yeah. It's definitely a growth process.
So what would we tell people about taking where you came from to grow the kingdom? Like how would somebody recognize that or be encouraged with that?
Here's the way I want to answer that. When we let me frame this a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take your time.
So both of us have been told multiple times, have a short version, just kind of a, devil bad, God good testimony ready.
Yep.
Right. So that, you can do a 2-minute, 3-minute, 4-minute little excerpt on your life, and then take 5-10 minutes to talk about, the goodness of God, the goodness of Christ.
Right.
And living that out. So I don't ever want to get tied up in what I did and came through as much as I want to get tied up in because I got tied up in because I went through these things.
Right.
God saw me through in the salvation of Jesus and his gospel to bring me to a point to where my excitement exudes anything that I faced back then.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think where I tell people to start is recognizing, like in Ephesians, right, it says you're predestined, right? That he knew you before the creation.
Yep.
Right?
In your mother's womb, yeah.
And I think accepting that is the first step. It was the first step for me, right? Accepting that it didn't matter how bad I was.
Right.
Right? God knew. He knew. And he chose me. And he loved me.
Anyway.
No matter, just anyway. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No matter who I was.
Right.
And so I would tell anybody, right, when you're thinking about and you're walking this out, how do I move forward? How do I help grow the kingdom? Because, right, no plan B. Right? Go make disciples of all nations.
Yep.
Right? Every single person.
Every single person.
And the way you do that successfully ties directly to your past. Right? And directly to your walk with Christ.
Yes.
Right? So it has to start with the recognition that you were loved. and you were chosen without any stipulation.
Without any, there's no condition on it.
No condition.
Yeah.
And when you accept that, the other stuff becomes easier. Now, it's not easy.
Right.
But it becomes easier.
But here's another cool thing about that, right? You can't level up.
No, there's no,
I mean, it's the same all the way through. It doesn't matter if you do, I helped 7 old ladies across the street at Walmart today. No, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You can't level up in God's love.
No.
It's always going to be the same.
That's right.
And it's the same for you as it is for me.
That's right.
Now, the things that we did BC.
That's right.
Before Christ.
That's right.
May not have been the same, but the bottom line is it was all sin.
Absolutely.
Every bit of it.
It was 100%. Absolutely. It wasn't good, right?
So there's no difference in what I did as far as addiction goes or anything else that I did.
Yeah.
And there's a lot.
That's right.
As opposed to what you did.
That's right.
Or as opposed to what Joey Bag of Donuts over here did.
That's right.
That's right. So it's all sin before Christ.
Right. And so then what I would say, when you've recognized that you're chosen, predestined, loved, regardless of everything, right? Then figure out what you're passionate about. What do you really love?
Jesus.
Right? Absolutely, yeah. Jesus.
Right.
But then secondary to that is like, we love motorcycles.
And tacos.
And tacos.
Right? Tacos big.
But there's, the first time I rode a bike, I was like probably 8 or 10.
Yeah.
Right? A motorcycle. Dirt bike, 3-wheelers, name it. If it had a motor, I was riding it.
A funny story about that. I skipped first grade, skipped school in first grade so that I could come home because I knew my dad was going to be home for lunch to give me a ride on his motorcycle in the first grade.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's the way it should
be. Yeah. See, Mom, I should have done that.
But because of that, I have a comfort level
right
in the motorcycle community.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I'm comfortable. I know the culture. I understand. I can relate.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
If you grew up snowboarding, skiing, your whole life, and that's where you're comfortable, well, then maybe you should be ministering on the mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Don't try. The reason I bring this up is I think a lot of times people try to minister to an environment or a culture that they're uncomfortable with.
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
So say there were no sports involved.
Okay.
All right. So somebody didn't play sports.
Yep.
Somebody they weren't in the theater club, the drama club.
Yeah.
They didn't do Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, whatever.
Yeah.
They didn't do those things.
Yeah.
But all they did was grow up in the church.
Yeah.
Where is the ministry passion in that so that their past can help the future kingdom?
Well, for me, I would say that, and I'm probably wrong. Right?
I'm not saying you are.
Yeah, I'm just saying for me, if you grew up in the church, right, then within the church there should have been outreach.
Yeah.
Right? You should recognize what it means to serve people.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
If you're going to a biblically based church,
there's got to be outreach.
That church is going to be doing outreach, and they're going to be teaching people as they come up through the church, children to young adults to youth, or children to youth to young adults, whatever the order is, right?
Yeah.
To go and just serve.
Serve.
Right? So if you grew up in the church, you should already have a basis for serving.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And it probably shouldn't matter what it is because you did it to a whole bunch of different types of people.
Yeah. Little blue-haired ladies as well as...
Shouldn't matter because you've been doing it, right?
Right.
I didn't grow up in the church.
Yeah.
Right? So I didn't know what Christian servanthood was.
Yeah.
right? Now I served, but I just was trying to be a good person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I didn't do it very much, but
yeah, but
I helped people when I could.
But you didn't have an understanding of Christian community in action.
No, not at all.
Right.
Not in any stretch of the imagination.
And so, was that something that for you was hard to grasp?
I think it was because, we've talked about it before. I grew up in Utah, right? And the Mormon church was very much that we'll help you if you're Mormon. Mm-hmm. But if you're not Mormon, piss off.
Yeah, we're not doing anything for you.
Right? And that was confusing to me. Mm-hmm. Like, people need help. You should help them.
Right.
Right? There's homeless on the street, and you're saying ignore them.
So I had an issue with that.
Well,
I mean,
clearly I'm not Mormon, right?
Yeah, well, I know you're not. I know that.
But, so I grew up, I didn't have this concept of a church body, right? Because it's not the building, but a church body that didn't serve their community, right?
Right.
And I think we talked about, in another episode about when is it okay to leave a church, right? Mm-hmm. And if your church body isn't serving the community,
right,
there's a huge problem.
A big problem, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's massive.
And so to me, that's if you grew up in the church, you should be willing to serve anybody. Mm-hmm. Right? Now you may not be comfortable going to a clubhouse, right? Like an MC.
Sure.
Right? Because, a lot of people see them and they're like, whoa, that's some bad people.
Yeah.
They're not. They're not what you think they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Sons of Anarchy has completely tainted with all that. Yeah.
It's not that.
Yeah, right? And Marlon Brando.
Yeah, it's not that, and I think people don't recognize that in every type of organization there are bad people.
There are.
Right? Clubs are no different.
No.
Right? In every organization there are people who do legal and illegal things. Mm-hmm. Right? Clubs are no different. Mm-hmm. But in every organization there are great people who do great things for the community. And clubs are no different.
Clubs are number 1, 2, or 3 on the list.
They do more for their community and children and veterans than any church I have ever seen.
Yeah. Well, we just did a
toy run, 1,500 bikes, right?
Right. And we also just did a donation collection.
That's right. We did like 60% going to St. Jude, 20% going to Ronald McDonald House. No, 60% going to veterans.
Yep, 20% going to St. Jude, 20% going to Ronald McDonald.
That's right. And that was just like nobody said, hey, we should do this. And you'll never, ever hear about it except for maybe on this podcast.
Yeah, right.
And we won't talk about the clubs that are involved. But it wasn't BFC and Forge Brotherhood. It was the actual clubs.
Conglomerate, right? Yeah. So when you think about the things that aren't heard of,
yeah,
and nobody knows about what those are going to be, of the things that in the world that we minister in mostly,
yeah,
all of the things where they, collect sleeping bags and socks and things like that to take to Operation Stand Down or the National Rescue Mission or whatever, those things that are done and the ease that it is for you and I to move in and out of this community to be able to minister here, whereas somebody over here at Mattress Springs Baptist Church over here doesn't understand.
Yeah,
these guys are typically the flotsam and jetsam of society as they're viewed. That's not necessarily the truth of what they are,
right?
But the motorcycle community is viewed that way. So because, and Paul even talks about, I believe in Philippians where he has his own audience. Maybe it's in Galatians. I'll have to look that up. I'll get back to you on that later. But anyway, where obviously Paul's ministry was mainly to Gentiles.
Yeah,
Peter was Peter was to the Jews.
That's right.
So we think about. Well, Rob and Rick are because they know this life. Obviously, let's just let them do their thing in the clubhouses, in the motorcycle community, and things like that. And that's their thing.
Right.
We'll do our We'll do our little food pantry over here and concentrate mainly on members of our church.
Right.
Or we'll do our little benevolence closet over here and concentrate only on these 2 streets in this community. Or we'll do,
absolutely, I do.
That's not using the things, the tools that you have.
That's right.
We talked about earlier about playing guitar.
Yeah.
And I'm 100% believe that is a gift from God. God has given me the gift to be able to read music and the talent to be able to put it together.
Yeah.
I believe that wholeheartedly. But in using the gifts and talents that God has given me, whether it be to be able to play guitar or talk about or know the motorcycle culture and the protocols and the different language and things like that goes into that, that doesn't mean that when I'm at church on Sunday morning that I'm not being involved in other outreaches, whether it be a dental clinic that comes once a quarter to my church, or whether it's, praying for another congregation in the NETS network.
Absolutely. So
my past that I bring to help the kingdom future doesn't negate me from doing other things, whether it be collecting, I
know exactly what you're saying, because I'm kind of living through that right this minute, right? Like,
yeah,
you saw all the boxes in my garage.
I saw them,
right? At work they said we need to get rid of all this, right? We don't have room for it. We got other stuff coming in. We're just going to throw it away.
Yeah,
I said, don't do that. It's hand sanitizer.
Yeah,
alcohol-free hand sanitizer.
Yeah, I'll take about 5 boxes.
You take as many as you want.
I might take 10.
We'll load them up. I got like 200 out there.
I know. I saw them.
But, and a lot of the recovery houses have gotten rid of hand sanitizer because it had alcohol in it, and some of the people were drinking
it.
Right? And so that's not my normal ministry, right? But I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take all of it. I think we've given away 900 bottles to one organization already.
Wow. Praise God. That's awesome.
Right. But I think about, we've been going to Love's Way Church. That's probably going to be our church home. Like, we love it.
Good.
Well, they recently did an outreach ministry, right? Like an outreach event. Like, now every church I've ever been to, when they did this after Sunday service outreach event, it was about all the different outreach things that the church is doing, and you can go see what's going on.
So kind of like a job fair?
Kind of like a job fair.
Yeah.
Right? That's not how they did it. They invited ministries from the community.
Wow.
So like All for Him, you come set up a booth, right? This other recovery house, you come set up a booth. The Cumberland University Christian Student Society, come and set up a booth, right? So they didn't have anything from the church.
I like that.
They brought all of these ministries in from outside in Wilson County and said, you need to serve these ones.
Wow.
We're not going to
like that.
We're not going to reinvent the wheel.
No.
Right? We don't want to have an outreach that goes helps an outreach. Just go there.
Just go there.
Right?
Yeah.
All for Him's a great ministry.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Heather Young, amazing. She said she'd be on the podcast whenever we want.
Oh, cool.
Right? But so they just brought them in. First time I've ever seen it at a church. They just brought in all these other ministries. Like, these are the ministries the church supports. If you want to get involved directly with them.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Right? And then you're able to use what your past. Right? This is something I'm passionate about. I don't need the church to tell me to go do it. I don't need the church to coordinate it to go do it. They just hooked you up directly with them.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
That's great. Hey, speaking of the church, I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
Why is it that I don't know about so many, but why is it that there are churches, not of a particular denomination, just churches in general, okay, that don't open their doors past Sunday morning and or Wednesday night and Sunday night?
I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that. I believe the first reason is there are a lot of churches that have 100 or less, that the pastor is bivocational, and all of the staff is volunteers that have other jobs.
Okay, so let me tell you why I'm asking that. Okay. Should that deter them or keep them from doing just like what you said with an outreach, but using what our topic is today?
Yeah.
Using their past to further the kingdom future.
I don't think it should deter them, right?
But does
it? It absolutely does. I think it absolutely does because, resources are hard to come by. You can ask for volunteers all day, and 10% of the congregation is going to actually volunteer.
That's a topic for another podcast.
It is.
There's so many. There's so many rebuttals in that. So many rebuttals
that you have, or
yeah.
I mean, the statistics are pretty real.
I'm not saying that they're not real.
Right.
What I'm saying, I have a cultural rebuttal.
Okay.
Spiritually cultural rebuttal to that, and to fix that.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think the reason that the numbers are so low is that some pastors are afraid to preach hard topics. Right.
Right.
Like, they may preach about the Great Commission, but they don't call people out and say, there is no plan B. It is for everyone. I hear a lot of preachers say, well, it's whatever your spiritual gift is. So if your spiritual gift is cleaning the building, you clean the building. That's
comfort zone.
That's not the Great Commission.
That's comfort zone.
That is absolutely comfort zone. And so I think there's one, I think there's some smaller churches that are bivocational that they can't afford to staff the church, 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, right? They just can't afford it. And then they also can't afford to keep the power on, right? There are some churches that are such a tight budget
I get that.
They can't afford. They would close because of the bills, right? Air conditioning, heat, power.
I got you.
Right? All those things. Then I believe there are some churches that don't do it because, for lack of a better word, they just don't want to help people during the day.
They don't want the riffraff around?
Yeah. Like, if I'm open, that homeless guy may come in.
That's where I'm getting at.
Right? I truly believe that. There are churches like that.
I do too.
And I don't know how to like deal with that, right?
Here's my take on it. Okay. This is a nutshell. Well, we could do another podcast on this at some other time.
Yeah.
How many times do pastors and preachers, evangelists, whatever you want to call them, leadership of the church, only want to do that specific role in their congregation so that they neglect to learn the members of their congregation enough to know that Rick has a desire to help other people through XYZ.
Yeah.
Or Rob has the gift of gab to be able to have icebreaker conversations with people at the rescue mission.
Right.
So that those times when Rob and Rick are at wherever, we realize the need for room in the inn at our church.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, my spiritual rebuttal to that is this: we've allowed ourselves to get comfortable in the zones that we have placed around ourselves, so that we don't get out of them, calling them our ministry, when in fact we don't want the dirt of other people, and not just homeless people. Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm talking about spiritual dirt or dirt, absolutely. Period, whatever. We don't want that on our clothes, our conscience, or our pews.
Yeah.
Because we can afford to get it cleaned.
Yeah.
And Jesus ate with the tax collector Zacchaeus.
That's right.
And Zacchaeus was convicted to the point to where he said, look, I'm going to give back all the money that I stole and then some. Right? When we use our past, whether it be at the whatever, at a clubhouse, at the rescue mission, at a children's home or whatever.
Right.
When we use those things to further the kingdom, we end up getting dirt on us in some way, shape, form, or fashion, physically or spiritually, emotionally. But when we use those things, we talked last week about our last week's podcast was about core values.
That's right.
And centered around the fruit of the Spirit because of love.
Yeah.
Because of joy, because of peace, because of kindness and goodness. Because of those things, whatever we get on us comes off.
Right. But I feel like everything you said is accurate. And I can't speak for every church. But I feel like if I went to Love's Way and I said, I know they already do room at the end, right?
Right.
We went to they have a men's meeting once a month called Men of Valor, and there's 30.
I love Men of Valor.
That's what they call it. It's not Men of Valor.
Okay, it's not the Men of Valor.
I love the Men of Valor too. Right? It's a great ministry, but they call their little men's get together Men of Valor.
Okay,
like a worship thing and stuff.
Yeah.
But so we had went to that, and one of the guys stood up and said, "Look, we need Thursday nights this night. We need people to stay. We need this and this. Like, I know they do room at the end. They invite people in. I believe that if I went to the pastor or the leadership at Love's Way and said, I have this ministry that I want to do and I need to use the building, they would say yes. And I feel like even when I was at New Heart, if I went to New Heart and said, I have this ministry and I need to use the building at these times, they would have said yes. Right?
Yeah.
They would have said, here's your key, here's the right code. Like, they would have said yes. And I think a lot of churches would say yes.
I think.
But it takes somebody to say, I will lead this.
Okay, I'll buy that. I see what you're saying. Yeah, right? I see what you're saying.
Because the pastor can't, like we both know that a pastor can effectively shepherd like 125 people. But anything more than that, it's just overwhelming. Right? They can't be effective. They can't know people. They can't know what's going on in their lives and understand what's going on. Right? And they just can't do it. It's just not capable. People can try, but I don't think they do a good job if they
it gets a little skewed at that point, and
right?
Gets out of control.
And so I feel like at times pastors probably don't take on more because if somebody else isn't willing to own it, then the pastor has to.
And their plate's already full.
Their plate's already full. And usually the deacons and elders, they're full-time jobs, right? So they're not going to have time to do it in the middle of the week, right? Now, maybe some of them are retired and they could. I don't know. But, you can't expect somebody to take on this additional ministry work with everything else they're doing. And so you have to be willing to own it. And if you're willing to own it, I bet churches would open.
Okay. I agree with your point in that respect.
Yeah. I truly believe if I went to Love's Way and I said, I want to do this, they'd say, okay.
Okay. I see what you're saying with that, and I respect what you're saying. Where I have difficulty with that are these, congregations where the preacher comes in and unlocks the door an hour before church service starts on Sunday morning. Yeah. And then 15 minutes later, everybody shoot out to turn the lights off and lock the door, and you don't see anybody again until Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And it's not about it's not just about size of the congregants, the congregation. It's not just about, it's about the unwillingness.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure you've seen churches like that.
Absolutely.
You know, I've seen that.
But, like I've been to churches where we're in the lobby talking, and they were like, "Hey,
it's time to go.
We're trying to get out of here for lunch."
Yeah, yeah.
The Mexican buffet's waiting.
Yeah, which the one they're talking about is really good.
Generally, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we've covered a lot of topics, right? We talk about our past and how that goes into the future and things. And so I think what I would try to kind of land it with is telling people, like, you got to be comfortable ministering to the people that you're ministering to.
Yeah.
But don't let that prevent you
from getting out of that
getting out of the comfort zone, right? Paul teaches us you're going to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
Christ teaches us you're going to be uncomfortable, right? And what somebody sees in you may be exactly what they need. Right?
Here's the thing about getting out of your comfort zone, and this is awesome. It's awesome for me. When I get out of my comfort zone in a ministry opportunity or a ministry level,
yeah,
and I see, what I'm supposed to be seeing in that opportunity.
Yeah.
The fruit of that manifesting through somebody either, you know, deciding to make a change in their life or something like that. The thrill of being outside of my comfort zone is just exhilarated.
It really is. It really is.
So that's when you talk about, doggone, to turn the light on my phone. Didn't it really? when you talk about getting out of your comfort zone, that's the important part of it, is realizing that Christ is going to call you out of that through the Word.
Yeah.
And getting out of that comfort zone is going to be exhilarating.
And when you're out of that comfort zone, a lot of times your barriers are less, right? Because you're so uncomfortable that you don't have that wall.
Right.
It might be a 3-foot wall instead of a 10-foot wall. You have a little wall, right? But because you're out of it, then you may just be exactly what somebody needs to see, right? So recognize that while you're using your past to grow the future kingdom, that future may be something that you have no idea what it is.
None.
Right?
Yep.
You may not ever be able to relate with them.
May not.
Right? I think my wife's a perfect example, right? She's had a good childhood growing up, right? Loving family, loving home. But man, she can relate to people.
Yeah, she can.
I mean, she gets out of her comfort zone.
Yeah, Linda's good at that.
She is. She's taught me a lot. Let me just be honest, right? You know, but you hear people say a lot, behind every man is a great woman.
Yeah.
That ain't more true.
I ain't even a good man.
I ain't even a good man.
Yeah, I get it, man.
That's how it is.
Yeah, I get it.
Look, this has been awesome.
I've enjoyed it.
It's been a good talk.
And here's the thing. I get more excited about topics that we don't do a whole lot of research on because of the way that we land in things. That I love it.
I feel like sometimes we ramble, but that's what it's about, right?
It is.
It's, just being uncomfortable in the comfortable situation that we're in.
Yep. You're right. So.
All right, listen, this is Rick and Rob. Again, if you want to talk to us, if you're looking for a biblical-based church, if you need help, if you just have questions, whatever it may be, send us an email to hello@nomadpastor.org. One of us will get back to you. We'll help you find a church.
Yeah.
Right? We'll help you find some place to go.
Yeah.
And just remember, as we go through these things, always love God.
And love people.